It's your girl, Ella Shawn, Southern erotic author of the Broken Soul series, host and unlicensed therapist of the Black Writer Therapy Podcast, a show dedicated to amplifying the voices, stories, and experiences of Black women writers with the audacity to thrive in an industry that hasn't always been so welcoming. Join me as I welcome a new writer friend every Thursday at 7:30 a.m. for candid conversations about writing, publishing, and finding harmony in their writing lives. You can stay in the know by following the podcast on Instagram and TikTok. Feel free to message me on either platform. I love hearing from my listeners. And if you like what you hear and would like to support the show, you can recommend this podcast to family and friends, leave a rating and or a review. Become a paid subscriber to the How Are You Healing Sis newsletter on Substack. Or you can join my Sunrise Tea crew by gifting me a box of my favorite tea. Welcome to this session of Black Writer Therapy. I wonder who's in my waiting room today.
Ella, today you have Vanessa Walters, author of The Niger Wives in the Waiting Room. She is here to discuss her experiences as a UK-born Jamaican and the necessary excavation writers must endure to share stories that start the healing process. Vanessa Walters, Ella will see you now.
Hi, Miss Vanessa Walters. It is such an honor to have you here, and I couldn't even believe you said yes when you did. So thank you so much for agreeing to be on the Black Writer Therapy Podcast. I am your host, Ella Shawn. How are you doing today?
Hi, Ella. I'm doing great. And I feel like I ran you down to be on this podcast because I saw you talking about your podcast on Instagram and I just thought it sounded wonderful. And I was like, yeah, I would love to be on that.
Look, I don't even remember all of that because I am always running and chasing down writers. And even when writers come to me and say, hey, I want to do your show, I'm still like, wow, really? Still really grateful. And so the gratitude and the wow and the awe it's not going to change because you said you wanted to come on the show. You have an Insta fan over here. Love everything about what I read so far. So just to slowly walk into this, pull some things from your bio. And it says that you're born and raised in London. And so I hear this lovely accent that you have. But your parents are Jamaican.
Yeah. Both my parents were born in Jamaica and came to the UK as children.
Oh, wow. Okay. So they're more UK, more British than Jamaican.
They're more UK, but they came at a time which was called the Windrush Passage. So that was during the 60s and 70s where there was this big migration journey to the UK for a lot of people in the Caribbean because the UK wanted to build up its National Health Service and its transport network. So they reached out to their former colonies, the Caribbean in particular. And it was a huge opportunity for my grandparents actually at that time. Mm-hmm. My grandfather told me that prior to coming to the UK, he used to sell mangoes by the roadside and he also used to clean planes when he could get the work. And so he experienced a lot of food insecurity. And that was the reason he said he came to the UK because he wanted to earn enough money to perhaps buy a cow. But of course, when he got to the UK, his eyes were opened. He never moved back. He did briefly for a few years, but in general, the family stayed in the UK, and that's where I was born. And my other grandfather, he went to the UK illiterate. He didn't know how to read or write, and he taught himself how to read and write in the UK. So it was a huge journey for both sides of my family that really changed their trajectory. And I often dwell on the fact that I met my great-grandmother in the UK. She came later, but her mother was born and lived all her life on a plantation. So our family trajectory really changed greatly moving to the UK. So it's quite a poignant thing. And the Windrush story in general, which I touched on in the Niger Wife, is something I really wanted to capture in some way because it's a big part of my identity and my emotional core.
That is lovely.
So the Windrush journey really started in the 50s. Because Windrush is named after the first ship that came in bringing the Caribbean people who were going to do all this work and be part of the post-war reconstruction. And that was the SS Windrush. And I believe that was like 1955 or something like that. But from the 50s to the 70s, that was the time of the Windrush, where they came from mostly the Caribbean, some also, I think, from the Asian colonies like India, but yeah, the Caribbean first.
Okay. Thank you. Because when I was like going through it, I thought to myself, this sounds very much like the Great Migration that happened in America.
Yeah.
And for the same exact reason.
Yeah, for sure. I actually saw an exhibition at the Brooklyn Museum called Great Migrations. It was an American story of migration. And that led to some discussion at the Brooklyn Museum because obviously I was Caribbean heritage, but my friend was also Southern heritage. So we really talked about the parallel in the migration journeys. And it's something I do feel that in so many ways, our heritage is quite similar.
Yeah, totally agree. That's really interesting, very interesting. And so it all brings me to this one question. How are you healing today?
Oh, I think that is such an interesting question because I think writing brings up new things and you have to dismantle yourself emotionally. And then you put yourself back together in a different way. And I definitely think writing is a kind of healing, but it's also a kind of unhealing where you open up old wounds in order to see what happened and in order to repair it in a better way. And I feel I'm still in that place where I am opening up old wounds because I'm working on my second novel now. I think the Niger Wife healed a lot of stuff. But then coming to New York and having some new questions, I think led to old wounds being reopened again. And so that's how I'm healing. It's probably a lifelong thing, or at least until I've stopped writing for a bit and I don't have to open up old wounds. I think I'll actually be a bit happier then, in a way.
That is so amazing that you said that because the whole concept of dismantling oneself and then digging through, pouring it out there, finding out how you can make it better, and then putting yourself back together again in a different way. That's my approach to writing. It's how I think about it. When I think about it, I try not to often think about the process. But that you said once you stop writing, once you will stop writing for a minute, that you might be a little bit happier. That is so poignant. I don't think I've heard a writer say that. I need to stop writing for a moment so I can find the happy. So thank you for that.
Yeah, I think writing is brave for most of us. I think it is putting yourself on the front line and trying to excavate, but not necessarily carelessly or to harm yourself. But that process of excavation does make you vulnerable to harm, whether it's the harm you're doing to yourself or just by removing that protective layer, the world comes in. And I think that this is a really tough time for creatives because of what's happening in Gaza and what we saw with Dr. Gay happening. It just again, like it enters you in a way that you don't really have much protection against it. So you have to be really careful with yourself, I think, when you're writing.
Yes, and recognizing that as creative, there are times when we have to be open. Like you said, we have to be open so that we can allow creativity to flow. But then all the other stuff flows in.
I think when I get to that point, because I have had that sort of groundhog day of you're writing into something, it's not moving forward, it's not feeling good. And then I switch.
I guess that's the beauty of writing. And I think you see the process in the books that you read. So I just want to ask you a little bit about, the first couple of books you published, which were YA books, Rude Girl's Best Thing in Life, and you had some poetry and plays. And I'm just looking at all this stuff. Like, you are really accomplished.
For saying that. And I receive it because I feel like I spent a lot of time thinking I wasn't really a writer, or I wasn't a real writer. And growing up in households where basically we were coming so closely from illiteracy, people in my immediate family or community, they didn't really know how to welcome someone like me into their understanding of things. So a lot of the time I got confusion and like, why would you want to do this? And this is not the real thing that you're going to do. And I don't get it. And I get you. And so I wasn't really in the literary community either, where people validate your artistry in that way. So I spent a lot of time, I feel, in the wilderness, just doing things almost accidentally. And in that way, I feel like I could have done more, but at the same time, recognizing the challenges that I had, I feel proud of what I did accomplish. So thank you.
Thank you. I love that for you. You tell your people, hey, yeah, I think I'm going to be a writer. I think I'm going to pursue writing. For the newspaper? No, I want to write novel. That you can't do that, right? That's the thing. You can't do that. It's so sad too that most Black writers, we have to really write the books and then make it, right? But not just make it and write it and publish it. Because if you're self-publishing, it's probably, who cares? Because it's not being done by a real publisher. But when you get out there and you get the agent, you get the real publisher, then everybody's like, you could do it. Will you be spectacular?
Yeah, oh, for sure. And that's also the sort of the absurdity of writing. You work on something for 6 years and people are just scared for you. And then suddenly, because you got an agent or you got a book deal, suddenly everything you're doing is fantastic. But wasn't it fantastic for the 6 years? So what is actually fantastic about it? Is it simply that commercial validation and not the actual work?
Right. And that, I think, a question that question is one that plagues Black women writers who may have started out self-publishing and no one was checking for them. And then all of a sudden they decide to go into it traditionally. And then everybody is, oh my gosh, you are brilliant. And but what I've always been this person. This is the same stuff I've been doing. And so is it the work, or is it that I am now being recognized by a broader society, by a white society who says, oh yes, her work is good enough to be published and put out there. And if that's what it takes to be like, oh, you're fantastic, I'm a little leery of those books.
Of course. And then you have to look at, what does the validation do for your writing? Because sometimes I think when we're receiving too much of that validation, we stop growing. So you just don't feel a need to push yourself as much, perhaps. So there's that side of things as well. I see a lot of writers who I guess I've known for a long time who've received a lot of validation, and I feel like they stopped growing.
And that's a huge fear. However, I am also looking at it from both sides of the coin because I have that vantage point. And he's asked the beautiful question that every aspiring writer who's gone indie and now wants to go traditional to ask, are you valuing me because of my work? Or are you valuing me because now I'm valued by others?
Yeah. Yeah, for sure.
Great question. Okay. We're going to move into the first segment. First segment is called intentional writing. And I call the segment intentional writing because the medical definition means to be part of the healing process of a wound. And I am such a firm believer that Black women write books and our words are balm. And this is dedicated to the intentionality of Black women writing. And your book, The Niger Wife, may I call you Vanessa? My family name is Walters. And so I feel I feel like I'm talking to a family and we just go because you might be, right? But no, Vanessa, oh my God, this story. I don't read the back of the book. I never do. And I went through reading the whole book without reading the back of the book. I set this whole thing up today without ever reading the back of the book. I see a cover, I like it, I go for it. So I'm not a book blurb girl. And then I'm going through your bio. And now I'm going to have to reread the entire book.
Well, oh dear.
Which is not a chore because it is such an amazing story. But I read it without the context that you yourself were a Niger wife. I didn't know any of that. Had I read the blurb, probably, but I didn't. And I didn't know. And so I read it and I was like, this can't be a real thing. This is not real, but God, that'd be cool if it were. Like if there was this association of Niger Wife. And so me being the nerd, right? I'm Niger Wife Association, Lagos. Oh, and a whole freaking website popped up. When I tell you, I almost fell out of the chair. Then I'm going back and I'm like, wait, she was? What? Oh my, you got me.
It's a strange book like that, for sure.
Oh, you got me so good. And so now I'm sitting here thinking about all the things that happened in the book. And then I'm trying to, was this her? Is this the one? Did she have a role in there? Which one was she the one who went? And everybody said, no. So this is where I am now. And this is why I have to reread the entire book, because that little tiny bit of information changed the entire shape of the book for me. Thank you so much.
What way, though? Does it matter? What do you feel that is different that you gain from knowing?
That this is real. That it's real. And it is not, in my mind as I'm reading this, I am just like, oh, she made this Niger Wife thing up. And she's exploring all of these different kind of dichotomies and so forth and so on. But there are no Niger wives. And there are no like Nigerian men who marry foreign women and bring them home. And then this is a thing. In my mind, I was like, this is a really awesome tale, like fiction. It changes it for me because I know now that you have firsthand experience with it. And so this isn't, oh, I have a great imagination and I can tell a great story. No, this is something I know for sure because I was there and I lived it. That's why. That's the perspective. So please talk to me, Vanessa, please.
Yeah. So I'd been in Lagos from about 2011. And I should say, definitely, Nicole's story and my story is very close. And I think in a way, like Nicole, I had gotten to a place in my Lagos life as a Niger wife where I just had all these questions like, how long am I going to be here? What does the rest of my life look like? Do I even really fit in here? What does this life experience that I'm having mean? I think I went through some stuff that Nicole has gone through, like being depressed, feeling isolated. And being a writer, I started writing to those questions. I think I started writing to those questions initially in random ways, like to-do lists. So I would write to-do lists every day. And as a way of anchoring myself in the day, because I would feel so lost in the day, that repetitive day where I felt like nothing I do really makes a difference. And I think the to-do list led me to blog. So I wrote this random blog called something like Diary of a Lagos Wife or something like that. And that was about homeschooling my son and the random funny things that I saw in and around Lagos or heard in and around Lagos. And that led to writing this story. So I think initially I did write it as, this is what I would say to people about my life in Lagos. Mm-hmm. Very quickly, I got bored. God knows what it's going to do for someone else because I'm really bored. So I decided to jazz it up by making it fictional. So for example, maybe if I had been at that stage a more confident writer, because I hadn't written for years, maybe I would have persevered with the sort of memoir aspect of it. And that would have been super interesting. But at the time, I really quickly felt this is not fun. This is boring. I don't feel free in this experience it just felt like I was complaining and centering myself in a way that didn't feel like authentic. Mm-hmm. I like the idea that if I had this fictional character called Nicole, I could be more objective with her. I could critique her. I didn't want to be seen as a victim, so I could create a character who clearly wasn't a victim. And then I could still write to all these questions I had about the existence. And that's why Nicole has this affair, because it's a way for her to not be a victim in her life. It's a way for her to be bad. And it immediately just became so much more fun once I had this fictional character. And then I thought, there's things I want to say about Lagos, but I don't think Nicole can say those things. So let me bring another character who can say those things. My mom had never visited Lagos. So I thought, what if my mom came to Lagos, right? What would she say about all the things that she is seeing here? But I didn't want to make it so easy to make it a composite character. So it was like all my aunts and all my uncles and just imagining the crazy things they would say or feel being in Lagos and even the things they would learn and appreciate. And so again, Claudine became like a very fun way to interrogate my Lagos experience. And I really kept things close in terms of like things I had seen, places I had been, inspired by people I did actually meet. But sometimes they're like composite characters, right? Ponye is very much a composite character because, for example, like I lived in a compound very similar to Nicole's, but I lived with 6 males in the compound, in the house, if you like. So I'm seeing Nigerian masculinity from 6 perspectives at once. And that to me was just so interesting and fascinating to witness. I grew up in a house of women. So to now be in a house of men, 6 men of different ages, different statuses, and not including the staff. Again, you're seeing masculinity differently with the staff and whatever their positions are and whatever their relationship to the family is. And that was just so interesting. And Tonya was such an interesting character to write from that perspective and what he represents.
Okay. I have to cut in here because Tonya, now that all makes a lot of sense. Okay. Because I kept thinking as I'm reading him and even like through the little flashbacks, and I love the before and the after and how, so brilliant. Absolutely love it. Good job. But Tonya, I was like, he seems so conflicted. And he wants to be this good guy, but it's not something that I felt was appreciated by the other men and his family and of his status. And he was expected to be and do these things. But he also had been in school in America, and he felt conflicted, but also resolved to be exactly what he was reared to be.
Yeah.
Like,
wow.
It was his duty. Like, this is what I have to do because this is my family. This is the way we are.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt that sense of duty very much in Nigeria. And I think it was so fascinating for me as a Caribbean person, and I'm sure you can relate as well. That idea of our place in the world was ripped away from us. And in a sense, we are more free. And I do appreciate that. We have no power differential in my family home. If I want to speak, I can speak. I don't have to be afraid of, am I addressing someone the correct way, or is it my turn? I don't have to worry about that. So I love that. But I was very fascinated by this pull of tradition and accountability to the system, and how much the system keeps social order, and what the existential crisis would be if the order is dismantled. What does it mean for the country if the order is dismantled? Because I feel like this system of order and accountability to your family and to your people is the thing holding Nigeria together. And when that social contract is broken, absolute mayhem, basically. That really fascinated me for all the characters, is what is their attachment to the system? Even Abby, Tonye's sister, she's furious. She's livid with this system, but she adheres to the system. And she deals with her rage separately. She wants something done. I feel like if I wrote a book too, I might write what Abby did next. I might write an Abby who decided to break the social contract and see what happens. But currently in the Niger Wife, Abby is livid, but she's not going to break that social contract.
She was nudging Nicole, like, Eddie, I was like, girl, don't listen to her. She's going to get you in a world of trouble.
She's on the edge. She's dangerous. Tonya is never going to break that social contract because he benefits from it. He benefits the most. And that is how the patriarchy is right.
You know what? You took the words right out of my mouth. Here in the States, we have white patriarchy, but we're looking at African patriarchy. And it is basically the same thing.
It's the same thing. In some ways, it is white patriarchy. If you look at like the colonial history, there is something different about it. But under pre-colonial Yoruba culture, for example, a woman didn't just get status from marriage. A woman got status from being a sister, from being a daughter, from being an aunt. And you do still see that. But these days, the status you get from being a wife has been elevated disproportionately to any other status you might have as a woman in the country, because that's come from religion. That's come from white Eurocentric Christianity, where you shall only have one wife, and this wife will be exalted above even your parents. So women derive more power from being a wife than anything else. And that has distorted what was African patriarchy. Under African patriarchy, a woman could return to her father's house if her marriage wasn't working out without shame. And under African patriarchy, there were no single mothers, because once you had a child for a man, you were a wife, and the man and his family had to provide for you. So nothing's perfect, but that system took more care of women than this Eurocentric Christian patriarchy does, because now in Nigeria, to be an unmarried mother is an absolute stigma. It's a complete taboo. To be a divorcee is a stigma. It's a taboo. And that's a bit convoluted. You can't remarry because you're still seen as someone's wife, but you have still removed yourself from the pedestal of marriage. So you no longer have that prestige. So it's a very fascinating type of patriarch. And I don't think enough has been said about it.
I can tell you this, and I'm trying to become more globally aware, because I think that helps with my writing and just with understanding people and different circumstances. But it sounds like patriarchy, Eurocentric patriarchy, the host bang, but it seems like every time Eurocentric is plopped on something like African patriarchy, it becomes a different corrupt animal that really isn't benefiting anyone, not even the males, if you consider how they're living and what they've given up by adhering to this Eurocentric idea. And so, like this book, you have so many different layers in here, and you were there. You lived this life. I can't imagine the healing that took place from writing. I can't imagine what you had to dig up, and then you were brave enough, vulnerable enough, a wonderful enough writer to tell a story that reads fiction, but is also very real.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was part of my therapy. And I think one thing I realized towards the end, when I've been brave enough to write to all these questions that had made me feel like an absolute failure, I then realized that this is a shared experience. This is not me, Vanessa, a failure at marriage, a failure at assimilating into Nigeria, a failure at being a mom. This is a very natural response to what foreign women go through when they marry into these patriarchal families and are left to get on with it. Because there's a quote from Medea, which is a Greek play, like one of the most famous of Euripides' plays. And the quote is, so Medea is an Asiatic wife who marries into this aristocratic Greek family. And the marriage goes south. And at the beginning of the play, her husband is marrying again, and she's being exiled. And in the course of the play, she doesn't deal with this news very well. So she ends up killing her children and her husband and his wife. And yeah, she goes insane, basically. And it's like scorched earth. And her quote is, "A woman is expected to be a prophet of that which she's never been taught." And I think that is for the Niger wives. We are the Medea in this situation, because we're coming into this very culturally specific family. Depends what culture your family is, right? Because there's tons of different cultures in Nigeria. You come into this family and you're expected, the burden is completely on you to understand and to change yourself and to keep everybody else happy in this situation. And you're expected to just accept the things, the decisions that are made in this patriarchy and not to go mad, right? And I think a lot of Niger wives go a little mad in this situation. And that's what the association is for. It's for a place of being seen and supported so you don't feel like you're going crazy. Is it my imagination that this gele is so tight, it's cutting off the circulation to my ear? No, not your imagination. And you still have to wear it for 12 hours. But if you take a little hairpin and you stick it in there, you might be able to dig your ear out and save your ear. But this is something that perhaps if you were to ask one of your in-laws about, they might see that as insolence or insensitivity or like ingratitude. So it might be easier to talk to another Niger wife about it than to talk to one of your family members about whether you even want to wear this gele or not, and how it would be seen if you don't wear this headdress that they all wear. So this is the little things that matter. And the Niger Wife Association, I think, really shines when it comes to that place of acceptance and explaining and like being able to voice your concerns and being able to be among people who are all different also. So, yeah.
Look, I am very rarely quiet. I'm very rarely lost for words. But yeah, I could just listen to you talk. I could just listen to you talk because it is phenomenal. And to think that you were able to fictionalize this reality so much, I just assumed that there was no such thing as a Niger wife. I just want you, if you could just your head around that, right? Like I wrote a piece of fiction that was realism, but I wrote it so well that people think it's just fiction and that these people don't, but that's crazy good. Okay. Like fangirl moment. Wow. I'm going to give you this now because I can't, if you need a beta reader for the second book, I'm down because
oh, please, that you shouldn't have said that.
I am so serious. I absolutely love your writing. I love your style. I love how nuanced you are. I love how you subtly slide these really huge things in. Like they're very big, right? But the way you write them, you shrink them down to a wink. And then later on, they blow up in your face and you're like, dagnabbit, I didn't see that. I saw it, but I didn't see it. I didn't think it was what it was. That is skill and talent and beauty. I love all of it. So yeah, I would love to be a beta reader for you. I'm just shooting my shot.
I really appreciate that. And yeah, just another interesting bit of trivia is that my husband's mom was a Niger wife as well. She was African American. So his mom is African American from the South. They moved to Lagos with my husband and she fled Nigeria. She fled, don't know if she lasted as long as I did. She picked up her kids and fled because it was too much. And I would say Nicole's story is actually probably closer to hers in some ways than it was to mine. And she loved my story. And I've been super thrilled by the way the Niger wives have embraced my story as well. In fact, they've used it as a way to have discussions about how they can support each other better. So I feel super proud about that.
As you should. But here, you said your mother-in-law was a Southern African American. I said to myself, that chick did not stay long. She didn't stay. I stayed with me when I left. Very long for me. That's funny. So she left. Yeah. I would have been gone on the first thing smoking, me and my baby. Not for me. Not my kind of party, but thank you. Thank you. Okay. We spent some time with the book and thank you so much for just sharing all of that. I think this is going to be a lot of, I don't know, I think people are going to fly out and get the book if they already haven't, because just listening to you talk about it is beautiful. And can we say that? Let me go back. Are we currently being adapted?
Yes. Just very randomly, my agent had put it out there in Hollywood circles. And Amy Aniobi, who was the executive writer, director of Insecure, she read it and fell in love with it. And so HBO are adapting it now for screenplay.
Wow. Congratulations.
Yeah.
I love to see it.
Wow. That was really crazy and just beyond a dream for Amy to love it that much and enough to throw her weight behind it to see if it could get made. That was really incredible and the best thing I would never have even asked for. Just so amazing.
And that's the thing, I think. We say we have big dreams and then but we don't. We really don't have big dreams. We have these very secure, it could happen because it's happened for other people. And we never dream as big as we think. We think everything's too big. I love that HBO has picked this up. Are you going to be active in the producing and being on set?
I would love to be active. I think I'm more of a non-active executive producer. So they let me know what's happening, but don't really, and they welcome my opinion, but they don't need my input to move forward.
Gotcha. It's just such an amazing opportunity. And I think this book is something that will translate really well onto the screen. Just because you're writing the description, your wording, their phraseology, I think if they do it justice, it's going to translate beautifully. So we follow each other on Thread. And so you are so great on Thread. I love book threads at this point, right? So I was looking through my threads, and I think it was yesterday, and you talked about how you got your agent.
Yeah.
Okay. We're going to segue into the audacity of Black women writers, and that's why I'm asking you. So can you share a little bit of that story?
So I finished my novel. I had done definitely a couple of drafts, maybe even 5-6 drafts at this point, and it was December 2020. So I felt, was it December 2021? I think it was December 2021. Mm-hmm. And so I knew January I was going to start querying. So January, I sent it off to several agents. Then I was looking around to see how else I could get an agent, right? Because we're told it's going to be this long process and it's a 1 in 6,000 chance of getting a literary agent, and it's impossible. And you're going to be querying for a year, 2 years, who knows? So I even had put a note on my Nextdoor app to my Nextdoor community saying, if there are any agents in this community who would be kind enough to receive my query, let me know. And I actually got offered representation that way also. But I was looking on Twitter because I had noticed that on Twitter, agents often say, hey, my inbox is open, send me your stuff, or they say, I'm really interested in this book. So I saw my agent, who I didn't know from Adam, saying she was looking for a comp like My Sister the Serial Killer, which was one of my comps. So I queried her immediately, and that day she asked for the manuscript. And she read it overnight. And the next day, she offered me representation. And that was just so sudden and so emphatic. I thought she was really great. And so I actually decided that one of my phrases is follow the energy. And I really decided I was going to cut my agent search short, and I was going to follow the energy on this because I loved Claire's energy. And she was also with a top literary agency. It wasn't like a total shot in the dark. And Claire gave me some notes. So I revised it again over the next few weeks. And then she sold it. She sold it like a month later. And at the same time, she sent it to Hollywood. Within 2 weeks after that, HBO had come back showing interest. So she really changed my life. And I call her my fairy godmother because it does feel like magic.
You changed your life. She just happened to be there to witness it and shape and you wrote the book. It's your story.
I did write the book, but I also feel like she was somebody who had a great instinct for the book, because so many people have not gotten the book, and not in the industry, but I guess in the public as well. So many people have not gotten the book. So I think the fact that Claire really got the book and got what was great about it and also saw who else might like it, I feel incredibly lucky from that point of view.
Yeah, I'm still going to say you have probably changed her life. You are like an amazing wordsmith, and writing that book put you in a really great position. You were ready. You had done all the work. And so was it luck, or was it I'm prepared so that when my opportunity comes along, I'm able to grasp it? And I'm all for, yay, my agent's amazing. And I changed their life when I let them represent me. That is how I'm going to look at it.
And to a certain extent, I do agree with you in the sense that, yes, Claire did change my life with this particular book, but it's a long-term relationship. And I feel like, yes, writers take their agents on a journey too with their work, and just a journey of understanding the work, and also a new community that they have to go into with that writer and what it comes to say about them and who they've been out in the world. So yeah, it's definitely a partnership.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's the thing that I think I'm learning, and it is allowing me to, like, I'm vicariously learning, right, through writers who have gone through the process of getting the agent. And like, honestly, yours is the quickest I've heard. And so if you could just slide some of that, whatever it is that you were working with, just sprinkle a little bit of that my way here in Columbia, I greatly appreciate it. Thank you very much. But I'm learning just that everybody's journey is different. And writers have a lot of power in the partnership. And I spoke with another agent on Substack, and I was like, yeah, I never even thought that a writer would do. Oh, no, I don't think you're going to be the right agent for me. And that's something that agents are like, oh, what if they turn me down? What if they don't want me? And I said, I never even thought about that.
And definitely, I think I was lucky to hit it off with Claire. But in general, I tell my fellow writers that query widely, but have in your mind that it's a long game. And it's not just about the agent. It's about the editor you want. It's about the audience you want to reach. And what will really start with the agent. So really do see and understand your work and who it's for, and has connections to be able to get your work to a publisher where they have an editor who's going to elevate your work, and where they already have an audience for your work, because that's how you ensure the long game. Because this industry is really precarious, right? It's nice to get a good deal, but if you can't sell enough, then you won't get the next deal. You'll be back at square one. So you need to, especially as a Black writer, you need to have that full picture of the audience at the end of it, and people knowing who your work is for and how they're going to package your work and sell your work. I think that's been a massive learning curve for me, and something I want to take more control over when it to my next book, because now I've been through this, so I know what mistakes are going to be made. I know where I have to be more proactive, and I have to not be giddy and grateful, but I really have to manage the ship.
Yes, be more pragmatic and business-minded when it comes to it. Because, yeah, I'm like, wait, I'm writing all these books, nothing's happening, because business and me are like, and so, yeah, educating myself in those arenas, I think has, doing the self-publishing thing for 5 years, I've gotten a lot better at understanding all of that, which I think will help in whatever relationship I have with an agent. We are moving now into the audacity of Black women writer. That's segment 2.
Love it.
And this is where I slide into what is it like being in the publishing industry as a Black woman, which is what we've already been talking about. And you said, especially as a Black writer. So that leads me to one of my stock questions. Do you prefer to be called a Black writer, or would you prefer to be known as?
But I think that's a question you will never stop asking yourself, because you always see the difference. That on one side, there are the writers who don't have to be Black writers. And then on the other side, there are the writers who do benefit from being Black writers. I often think sometimes it's not a choice, as in if you are a Kweki Emezi, right, you have transcended being a Black writer by the mandate from the sales of your book, mandate from the prize that you won, or the mandate from the gushing New York Times reviews and Atlantic reviews that you had. I think that the label of Black becomes useful, though, when you need to be more strategic and niche with who your book is for, because you can want those young white TikTokers to buy your book all you want, but the truth is they mostly do not want to read our book. And it's what you said earlier about people validating you because you've already been validated. They are not reading your book because it's your book. They're reading your book because some white person at the New York Times told them to read your book. That's why they're reading your book. Whereas so then after them, who is going to read your book? It's Black women who are going to read your book. They're the ones who come out and support you and share your book on social media. And maybe you need to lean into that and really let them know it's for them, because that's the other thing. They have to see that it's for them. If they think that it's not really for them, it's just a Black face on something that's not really for them, they will bypass that also, right? So you need to let them know it's for them. And that's where being a Black writer can benefit you a lot. I'd say it's complicated. It's a complicated picture, and you have to navigate your way through that as the author, depending on what you feel strongly about and depending on how you gauge how your book is really landing. Sometimes you want to be a Black author, but unfortunately your book is not being embraced as a Black book, and there's nothing you can do about that. So then you just want whoever loves your book to support your book and to read your book and to love your book. Sometimes it's just going to speak to whoever it's going to speak to. And, you then don't want to be pigeonholed somewhere where the audience for your book is not there. So you have to be nimble on your feet, like Muhammad Ali. Sticking and moving. I have to remember that, because you hit my nail right on its head. Yeah, the book, these characters say they're Black, but they're not Black like I'm Black. And I'm just like, what does that even mean? And so I think Black writers in general, you're having to always think, am I writing for a certain group of Black people? What kind of Black people am I writing for? Or am I writing for everyone? Or am I niching it down? What am I doing? And I think it's just exhausting. It is.
Going around.
It's exhausting.
It is exhausting. So what I'm going to take away from that is Black writer or writer, it depends on the time of day and whether or not I am sticking or if I am moving. That's what I'm taking from that.
I have to say, I think that's where perhaps being from the UK has been a little disadvantageous for me, because I think for a lot of Black women or Black people in general in America, they don't instantly recognize me. The accent, or perhaps just the whole look. Sometimes it's not, they've not heard of me before. I don't have a big presence. I'm not one of their Twitter people. So I definitely think I've had to I didn't have a lot of blurbs from their loved authors, if you like. So it's been a challenge, right? To even let people know I'm a Black writer. I don't have an African name. It's, you have to see how people are receiving you. And as you said, whether you're deciding to stick or
that was you. That's good advice, really. That's, I often ask my guests, hey, what would you tell an aspiring writer? Decide whether you're sticking or moving and do what you need to do in those cases. Because really, and I think the Black woman's audience, the reader, it's so weird. It is just a weird place. And so I was like, okay, whatever. But finding that audience, I think, is especially when you are a Black writer and you write for Black women. And then reading doesn't have to only be a mirror. It should also be a window.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. And sometimes they see it and sometimes they don't.
Yeah, that's it. I don't know. But I think that, yeah, you seem to be navigating the publishing industry very well. Do you feel like you are?
No, I really don't. I just feel like it's a dogfight and I'm just hanging in there for dear life. I almost wish I could just walk away. Like some writers seem to get to walk away. They're like, okay, I've done my publicity. I'm disconnecting my Instagram now. See you next book. And I really envy that. I think most of the authors who get to do that are like the big sellers because their book has hit a certain level and it's taken its own wing. So they don't have to be around to promote it. I feel like that is partly also a function of my personality, because I've seen authors who haven't sold very well being like, F it, I'm not doing this anymore. And I don't care. And they seem to go off quite happily into the sunset. Why? So why am I still here in the amphitheater? Are you not entertained?
But I felt like you were getting ready to break into like Shakespearean tragedy there. Are you not entertained? Oh, I love it. I don't know. And see, that's another thing. I'm like, being an indie author, you're responsible for all of it. And you expect to be responsible for all of it. But I think there's this kind of la la land idea that once you become traditionally published, they take a lot of all of that off of you. But really, I've had several traditionally published mid-listers, and they're just like, no, you're still the one responsible for promoting. And they may set up one or two of your little book thingies, but for the most part, that's all on you. And I'm just like, what is the point?
I know. I think the grass looks greener sometimes. I have been looking longingly at self-publishing as well. I think my publishing team did a really great job from the point of view, they got things I could never have gotten. They got Good Morning America, which I would not have gotten. They don't do self-published books. Mm-hmm. And I'll always forever be grateful for being a Good Morning America book club pick, because that's it. That level of support has ramifications for how other people support you as well. It's something that the library may say, okay, we'll definitely get some copies in because we see you're a Good Morning America book club pick. It's the chance of getting that, I think, that makes you want to be traditionally published. And then they're just fantastic with distribution. So in a sense, I can walk away because I know that if people want to read my book, they're going to handle getting the books to those people. And they even tell you, don't even worry about it. You can just go ahead and focus on writing your next book if that's what you want to do, because that is going to move the needle. That means the whole machine's going to start up all over again on your behalf. And so I think a lot of writers choose to put that energy into the next book and move on. I don't feel in one sense I can do that. I feel under pressure to just keep I think as that's another thing about being a Black writer. I think you feel anxiety all the time. You also feel under pressure to look grateful. I know you said I could walk away, but if I walk away, I know you're going to feel some way about me walking away. And I really want that next book deal. So let me look like I'm doing the most and I'm super grateful. So that I'm still somebody you can invest in, because I'm just going to be a workhorse over here and I'm going to keep promoting and shouting and being that good
Negro, going to be that, because I'm going to tell you what, and oh my goodness, the fact that you said it with your whole chest, thank you. Thank you. Because that part of being the good Negro, playing respectability politics, not giving yourself what you need. If they go ahead, because the matter's over, and you're like, you know what, they may be trying to trick me here. And that is, of course, because that's the part about being a Black writer that people who aren't Black writers, especially Black women writers, they don't think about that. They're concerned with that. So they can be like, you know what, I'm going to walk away and focus all this crazy energy on writing. Yeah. Because life is lifing differently and they people differently than we people. But you said it. Yeah. And so now I have to show you that I'm worth the investment.
Yeah. Yeah, never stop.
See, and I don't know if I'm a good enough Negro, Miss Vanessa, because I'm going to tell you, if they tell me I can walk away from posting on social media and that I can focus, say less. I'm good with that.
And I don't think it's necessarily wrong. They could be totally sincere about that. I think it's my anxiety. But this is something that I've even incorporated into my second novel, because I felt this straight away. I felt this like, where does it stop? This does not ever stop. And there's no place of safety. And if there is a place of safety, I can't see where it is. And I need to write about this horrible feeling of no place of safety. At least I channeled that feeling into my next novel, which is about Black excellence and how we are on this endless treadmill, and maybe we do need to just walk away.
Yes, that part. Then yes, I definitely want to be a beta reader for that, because that's such an important message. Like, you are writing stories that need to be told. I keep thinking, like, my whip is centered on epigenetics, and I keep thinking that we are living not through our own understanding of the world, but we are living through our ancestors' understanding of the world. And in doing so, we are not taking full advantage of our present and where we are. And I think that good Negro, like, I need to keep that a slave mentality. I'm going to go way, way far, so Master don't have to come out here with me, because he's going to see I'm doing good, and maybe I'll get some poke fat. I don't know. I don't know what the reward was, but I understand that was something that would have taken place, because you do above and beyond so that no one has to come and correct you, because correction could mean death.
My mom had several things that over the course of me growing up that I really think about now, which is all to do with the body being a means of labor, something you exploit and not something for itself. I remember when my mom was growing up, I'm guessing her Jamaica was one that was very colorist, because a lot of her comments about my complexion or my appearance have been about how it can be modified in order to better exploit it. So it's like, why don't you try this cream? Or it's like, why did you go in the sun? Or it's you're looking a bit fat, or it's you're looking a bit thin, or, it's why did you stop relaxing your hair? Or your skin, it needs something. And I know this all comes to feeling about how we can better exploit your body to get what we need. So essentially putting your body to work. And it really breaks my heart to feel that about my mom, that the body was never for herself. And we were never for ourselves. And the children were never for ourselves, because we were always used as labor. And we've come to think of ourselves as labor. How can we put this body to work? Get something. And that's something I still need healing from, because it's difficult to break out of.
Yeah, I had those in my notes, that I had the colorism, and I didn't bring it up because we talked about so much, but the colorism, and you were the milkman, somebody was the milkman's baby. And I thought to myself, I have 3 daughters, and you see my complexion, this is it. And my husband, here he is right here. Okay. Our first daughter came out, and she was like white, just white for no reason at all, except that my mom is fair skinned and my husband's mom is also, but I didn't care. Everybody kept saying once we had her out, and she just stayed, she's 23 years old, she still doesn't match anybody in the house.
You're old enough to have a 23. You look like you're 23. Wow, I love
you. Oh, no. Yeah, 49. This year is 49. Thank you. But I'm like, we come in all shades and colors, and don't do that. Don't bring color into this house. Yeah, and that's a hurtful thing, but it's hurtful.
For sure, it does. Writing about those things helped me to really feel a lot of empathy for my mom in terms of what she's endured, and understand what you said about, I don't get as angry because I understand that's her reality. Sometimes I'm walking through her reality, but not my reality. It doesn't have to be my reality. It would be ludicrous if that was my reality, because that then really is generational trauma, because her reality is from Jamaica, a historical Jamaica, and I'm modern day UK. When she grew up, she saw that it made a difference in a lot of ways, and that's what she held on to, what your complexion was. It doesn't make a difference for me to the same extent in modern day London, but if I was to hold on to it like she's held on to it, then I'm living a ludicrous reality at that point. So I think, and that's what why I wanted to include it, to show how we have to let go of these things.
Yeah, and know how to let go of those things without necessarily letting go of the people who are still holding on to them. And that was the difficult part for me, right? Because I was willing to let everything go. Like, my peace of mind, my happiness is number one. But I was willing to, okay, good. But you don't want to let your mom go. And then just having that empathy. And I think so many of us are writing to, heal our mother wounds, and our moms do so much. And I thought to myself, I said, I am not going to be that mom who wounds her children. And I think it's just inevitable.
Yeah, it is inevitable. It is. There's something quite awful about parenting once it begins.
Yes, it is. It is. I love being a mother, but I don't know that I was fond of parenting. I love being a mother. I love having my daughters, but I knew somewhere in the back of my little tiny brain that I was going to mess up, and that it was going to affect them in some way that was huge. And I would not, I guess I could use the Medea quote, right? I didn't have the prophecy for what I didn't know because, and I knew I was going to mess up, but you don't know how, and you don't know what exactly you did, but you just know as a mother that in your parenting, you're going to screw some stuff up.
Yeah. And it's hard. And it's heartbreaking sometimes. I remember my boys, because they grew up in Nigeria, again, they grew up in a different reality. And so when they got to a certain age, they started saying, like, why do you talk like? And I think they were referring to what we in Jamaica called hard talk, where we talk harshly to those we love, it in humor. But my kids didn't always get the humor and took it as hurtful. Like a Jamaican thing to say would be like, see how your head big, or see how your stomach big.
Mm-hmm.
And this is an example of like hard talk. And them querying me about the hard talk and me explaining that didn't mean anything. It's just how we talk in Jamaica. And then realizing that, yeah, like when they go to my dad's house, they get this hard talk, which they don't like. And when they go to my mom's house, they get more hard talk that they don't like. And it made me really interrogate, this is generational trauma, because there's actually no reason to talk to our children harshly. No, there's no reason for it. And I'm just acting out this pattern of behavior that really does go back to slavery, because that was obviously a coping mechanism. This hard talk, and let me try and let that go. Let me practice. Let me not be afraid to be kind and sweet to the people I love, because I feel like the hard talk is being afraid to be kind and sweet. You've got all this insecurity about how much you should trust someone to love you back. And that's heartbreaking.
Mm-hmm. Even your own children. And I don't know that. I wonder if all the mothers feel this way, or is it just like a brown mom thing where you're like, I don't know if my kids actually love me or if they just are holding on until they don't need me anymore. Like that part. And was I like that? Do I actually love my mom? And it's just like all of this stuff that keeps popping up. And I think I saw a lot of that mother-daughter contention, and with Claudine, Penny, and her mom. And then, of course, although Nicole was raised by Claudine and not, but even with her own mother, who I think drug overdose.
Yes.
And I was just like, you still have this kind of, you wrote that contention, all of that tension in there between moms and daughters. And it's just, I don't want to stay with her. You can't leave me to stay with her. And I'm like, Lord, I hope that's not my girl when I'm an invalid.
No, it won't be. No, this is a family that's really still unraveling a lot of recent trauma. Why everything is so fraught.
Yeah. But again, it's so subtle. And I think because of shared experiences, I read it the way it was written and knew exactly what was going on. But your subtlety and the nuance and how you slide all these little things in. Yeah, I love that you didn't take time to explain it. What gave Vanessa Walters the audacity to say, hey, you were looking for a comp for X, Y, and Z? I have it. And also, I'm that wit. What gave you that audacity? Because you do seem so humble, which is one of my least favorite words. Everybody says, you need to be humble. I'm like, no, I don't need to be humble.
I think it did come from humility, actually.
What?
I think it did come from humility, just a place of nothing to lose and a place of not being afraid of rejection, because I'm fully expecting a lot of rejection, and I'm going to be okay with it. And I'm going to regroup. I'm going to revise my manuscript again. And then I'm going to query again. So I honestly think, yeah, my query letter was like, I'm so ashamed to show it to people. They're like, oh, can you show me your query letter? But like, my query letter is just me prostrating on the floor. So, hey, this book, I didn't hold back, right? I was like, I threw everything into this book. And I probably wouldn't be here if I didn't write this book. And I wrote my way to a new life. And this is that book. I didn't hold back. I fully accepted that I just was going to throw myself on my sword, which was my book. I recently read Murakami's Novelist as a Vocation, and he shows his work to a lot of people when he's revising and before he gives it to his editor. So being humble as to and open as to what work your manuscript needs helps you, I think, to have a more polished, a more readable manuscript. So yeah, for me, I hope, and that's where I say, I think the validation can stop writers growing. That's where the lack of growth begins, because being open to feedback, like I read my reviews, it hurts, but I read my reviews. But you know what it made me think about is like in humility, like this thing you said about healing, like if a book is to make someone heal, then my ending, did I want to have an ending that healed people or ended on a more positive note? Was I selfish with my ending? When I do an ending again, I think I will be more considerate of what do people need from the story that I'm trying to tell, and balance that with my own need. I think I was very selfishly in my own need, but maybe next time I will be more considerate about what other people may need from this conclusion.
That's interesting. And I'm going to say this, and then we're going to go into the game. When you say it, all of that audacity came from humility, then I am going to equate humility with strength. Okay. Because a lot of people think to be humble is to take a seat back and grovel and beg. And yes, lay prostrate on the floor, begging for it all. But for me, I always say that I, the eternal self, am not humble because I have no reason to be. Okay. The eternal self is eternal. But Vicky, right, and Ella, right, because it's Vicky, I write as Ella Shawn. Vicky, she needs to be humble. She really does. She's just dirt. And so she needs to be a humble bunny. But the I that is eternal, no humility, but strength. I think that passes through to Vicky in her strength. And I think it's the same with you. You're a very strong woman, and it takes a certain amount of strength to have that kind of audacity. And whether or not you call it humility or strength or moxie, whatever you want to call it, I'm going to call it strength and courage. Like, that's very courageous, all the things you did. And it's probably why you were so quickly rewarded the universe, because it takes a lot of courage and strength to just lay yourself out there like that and say, this is me, this is what I'm offering, and this is what I want to do with what I'm offering. And this is it, right? That's it. Balls to the walls. I'm going to go all in. That's to be commended.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's play the game.
Oh, my word. Okay. The game is called Tell Your Whole Story. Okay. And are you ready?
I'm ready.
All right. Your first word is nourishing.
Nourishing. Okay. All right. Related to nourishing, definitely my writing journey and on my life journey. So I guess we could tag this. I think I've been super interested and fascinated by the way people receive food as spiritual nourishment and an anchor in their identity. And so I will never take food for granted again.
I love that. You had double entendres in there, and then you had spirituality in there. You gave us the whole length of yam. Thank you so much for that. Your next word is insightful.
Okay, insightful. Shall we do this writing while Black? I think one of the challenges of writing while Black is this thing that Du Bois called the double consciousness, and having to really understand your work for yourself and also how it's going to be received by other people. And so I really do think Black writers have to do an incredible amount of work with their words to be able to measure the reader's distance from the page, and to know that some people will just be reading it for literally what it says, and other people will be seeing more meaning in it. And so you definitely have to have a strong sense of insight. And this is why I read a lot of Black writers, because I really appreciate the mountain that they climbed with their work in terms of gauging that. I mean, the queen of that to me was Toni Morrison, obviously, but also Zora was very good at that too. It was a way of writing that was extremely Black, and just showing me, even when you're writing about white characters, you're not writing blindly, you're writing with that, from that very insightful place. Mm-hmm. And just showing me there's so many things to do with the word as a Black writer. So that's my insightful writing.
I love that. Yeah, I love that, because like you could do so much with just like even the placement of your words if you're looking at consonant vowels or if you're looking at the cadence. So your next word is generous.
Generous. Yeah, I think a writer has to be generous when they write. And this is why people often say thank you for the work, because the work does take something out of you. And even if it doesn't look like it. So, for example, someone could be writing sci-fi and it's set completely, doesn't seem to have any relation to the writer's own life, but they could nevertheless be cutting off a limb metaphorically in order to give you that story. And my thing is, and it's like a little bit like just my thing, I don't think it's a rule, and I think some writers would have a very different opinion, but how I come to it is just you'd have to cut off a limb to write. If you have to be as generous as you can, you are throwing yourselves to the wolves on the page and hoping that people receive it as you meant it. But if you're not going to be generous, what's the point? So at least the least you can do is give all you have to give. Be generous.
Oh, I love that. I do. I love that. Yeah. Empowering. I never say that word right.
Empowering. Yes. Writing The Niger Wife was very empowering because I was giving language to something I didn't have language for. I didn't know why I was depressed. I couldn't articulate what it was about the compound life that made me feel stifled. I couldn't articulate why I didn't know necessarily I was even depressed. To just that, okay, why have I been wearing my pajamas all day? And why hasn't anyone noticed that I'm wearing my pajamas all day, except for maybe my 5-year-old who's just speaking what he sees, but everybody else has thought about it and decided not to say anything. And so writing the words and seeing them on the page and seeing the way people have received those words has let me know I was not mad.
You were not one of the Niger wives who went mad. And thank all of everything for that.
Yeah. So that was empowering. That has been empowering.
Yeah, good. I think writing needs to be that for the writer and the reader. Oh, this is a good one. Radiant.
Okay, radiant. I think that is radiant. That sort of has me stumped. Okay, I think that West Africa was radiant to me. It helped me to see, coming from such a grey climate in the UK and feeling so marginalized or small, and that British reserved mentality. Moving to West Africa was like someone just turned the lights on. It was just very sunny all the time, and people were more themselves, like they think something, they say it. Nobody felt marginalized because you're all Black there. So nobody feels, oh, I don't want to stand out in my pink dress and get the white hostility backlash. And that is so clamped down on in the UK. Clamped down on for everyone, but especially people who are other, if they've got to fit in. So that for me is radiance.
I love that. I'm glad that you have this kind of positive that you can talk about as well for your time in West Africa. So thank you. We are now on wife, and your first word is wise.
Okay, wives. Oh, yeah. I think I didn't really understand what marriage was before I moved to Nigeria. And I think it's not so much just because of moving to Nigeria, but also, as I said, I grew up in a house of women. I didn't grow up observing marriage. So I feel like I lived that blind, and I witnessed and I experienced the ways in which wives have to deprioritize themselves in a family. The family is built on the wife's back. And that was a shock. It was a shock to realize, wow, this family is really on my back, and I'm being crushed underneath the weight of this family because the father gets to make the rules. And if I don't like the rules or I resist the rules, then the family starts to crumble. So I'm the one who has to uphold the rules at my own expense. And that's where the family is built, on the wife's back. And it's a very sobering thing. The woman is the one who's considered responsible for the family and for the quality of the family life and for the culture that's transmitted to the children. And there's no way around that fact. So that is the wife's burden.
Wow. Okay. I'm not even going to say anything because we need to go. But wow. That is a 4-letter word. And that's how I'll be happy. I'll be happy because they're happy. But a happily married woman, that's a unicorn. I've not seen one yet.
It's so true. And that's my next book is also still on this issue, the landscape of terrible marriages, because I agree with you. You said it perfectly. You see a happily married wife, right? Because that's the performative part. But when you get into the nitty gritty of it, there's a lot of women who are really struggling in this performance, and it costs their health, and it costs their dreams, and maybe they're doing it for a certain privilege so their kids can thrive and go to their fancy private school, or have the more in society that we elevate the married woman, the more burden we place on the performance of the wife.
Yeah, I agree. It's so weird. It's the weirdest institution outside of slavery that I think I know of. Because it is like you have slavery and then they're like, that's right beneath. Hey, I don't care. It comes for me because me and my homegirls believe this. You have slavery and then you have, oh yeah, and I'm a wife.
Yeah.
Not much different.
And this is where it goes to, I appreciate my culture in Jamaica, and where I see your culture has come to assist you as well in being able to talk to your husband about this without shame and feeling empowered to speak your mind on this issue and not have to perform, because that's what I saw in Nigeria was like a lot of performance around this. And in Jamaican culture, because there's so many matriarchal homes, because there's a more kind of lackadaisical attitude or open-mindedness to being a single mother, it means it gives you more freedom to have the kind of relationship you want because you're not so scared of the alternative.
Mm-hmm. Indeed. Yeah. And so that's why I'm saying, if that boy's mom was a Southern woman and she was over the Nigeria and stuff wasn't popping right, bye y'all. This is a party. Bye y'all. Yeah. Well, kudos to you. You did 5 years.
Oh, to seven. Yeah.
Oh, I didn't mean to go on, but you hit it so beautifully. You said it. Okay, next word, intelligent.
Okay, intelligence. Oh, I really don't like this word intelligence because I feel it's so loaded with ideas about IQ tests and literacy rates and white male supremacy and being good at math. And that's also burdensome. And I really feel like in the world of writing, the truth gets revealed. What is the truth of our existence? And this is also why I think someone cannot be a great writer. And so many of the writers who have rocked my world did not necessarily even go to college, right? Like Maya Angelou and Charles Dickens. They just see the truth of a thing. And they also bring their life experience to bear on the page. And so that's what I respect. I don't really respect this idea of intelligence. I don't really know what people mean by it, though. I veer away from it.
You are delightful. The way you think about the world and the way you see it, and then you share it with us. Thank you. Thank you. OBKB, we have 2 more words, and then I have to reluctantly let you go. And see you in threads.
Friends for life, though. I think we're going to hang out.
I hope so, because it's just like a flight away. I may invite you down for Sunday dinner at my mom, because if you are into Southern food, like you don't have it at a restaurant, you have it at my mom's.
Yes.
Okay. Fearless.
Yeah, I think, it goes with what I was talking about before in terms of how you come to the page. You can be afraid, but it's like you have to face your fears on the page. And I tend to think, go where you're most afraid on the page. Start where you're most afraid. And I don't mean that in an irresponsible way.
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, the greatness of your writing is going to be where you face your fears on the page. It does have to be fearless. That's #WritingLife.
Yes, I forgot all about the hashtags. I'm just sitting here listening, soaking up all the loveliness here. I love that. Yeah, you have to step into your darkness in order to make contact with your light. And if you're afraid of your own darkness, then you are not ever going to be able to shine the way you want to.
Definitely not. And I was terrified writing the Niger Wife because I knew I was keeping things really close. And I realized by the end, it doesn't really matter. The things that you're afraid of in writing really come back to haunt you. Time has passed. The people that you might have been scared of reading, they've gone their way. They don't care.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, that fearlessness of writing with the blood, or putting it all out there. And that Medea quote has been like the whole umbrella for our talk. We're on the last one. Enthusiasm.
Yeah. So Stephen King said that writing feels like flying. And I totally agree. So I always look forward to writing. I always enjoy the writing. Sometimes the enjoyment is a little bit scary enjoyment, like the horrible.
The roller coaster, right? It's going to be fun, but also, I might wet my pants.
Like you broke your heart on the page. In general, I just think I have so much enthusiasm for writing, and I always have done. And so I feel that's who I am. That's what I want to do every day is write.
Mm-hmm. Because writing's difficult now. But even though writing is difficult now, I feel like this is when I need to be writing because it is difficult. I feel like it's the time to step into it. And just saying, I'm going to make that the first thing I do. And life will happen while I'm writing, and then I'll take care of life when I'm done. And trying to say that I'm giving myself permission to do that. And you would think it'd be easier because I don't have like little kids.
It sounds like you do have little kids. One's called your podcast, and the other is your. These are all things that are really important to you and are taking a lot of your time. Might be better to frame it in terms of I'm going to give the first hour or 2 hours of my day to my writing and just see what happens from there.
Yeah, I told my husband's a distant runner. I put that on threads in response, but he's a distant runner.
And I loved that. That was so beautiful. Yeah. You were matching your minute or your hours
with his miles.
Yeah, that was love. That was just, I really loved that.
Yeah, so that's what we're going to do. And I think that's going to help out quite a bit because we're competitive. And so I think that's really just we'll push each other, but we'll do it in a supportive way, just like we do everything else. I am going to link all of your social media and your website into the show notes. I hope that we don't lose touch, right? Because you are really a gem, and I just absolutely adore everything about you and everything about what you said. But
and we are work too. I'm down to read your work too.
Oh, great! Because I do need someone who will So maybe you can help me find my story. It's in there. I think it's in there. So yes, I think, you and me, we're going to find my story, and I just get to read and give notes. By the way, I'm a former English teacher. So I won't just be, I know, and a former editor. So I won't just be reading and saying, oh my God, it's so good. It's like, I won't be doing
that. It's amazing.
Yeah. That's my jam. When I stopped working in the classroom because of lupus, I was like, what did I love most about teaching? And it really was helping my students become better writers, just seeing them fall in love with their work. I absolutely adored that. And I said, I'm going to do freelance editing. And that was fun. At the end of your turn, it's been great. Seriously, it's been amazing. I knew it would be. That's why I was really excited. So I wouldn't be a good unlicensed therapist if I didn't give you some homework.
Okay.
And just tell you, because it's easy, who would you recommend? Which Black woman writer would you recommend to come and sit on my proverbial couch and have a chat with me?
You know what I liked? So there's a book called Assembly by Natasha Brown. He's another British writer.
Gosh, it's been so amazing. And I really do appreciate you and your writing. So we will stay in touch. I get to be a beta reader for you. And I'll send you some pages and maybe you can help me find my story.
Thank you so much, Vicky. Nice. See you.
You too. All righty. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on the Black Writer Therapy Podcast. Don't forget to follow, subscribe, and download our episodes. To my aspiring writers, remember, this is a journey, and every rewrite takes you closer to where you desire to be. And our industry allies, let's keep those gates open, shall we? The Black Writer Therapy Podcast is accepting requests for affinity collaborative partnerships. Contact Vicki Binkley Brown if your company or organization is interested in participating. I'm Ella Shawn, host and unlicensed therapist of the Black Writer Therapy Podcast, reminding you to be kindest to yourself first, always and in all ways. Until next week.
In a world where shadows dance and secrets lurk, comes an unforgettable saga of broken souls, written by Ella Shawn. Get ready to embark on a gripping journey through time, a dark Southern coming-of-age saga that spans over 30 years. Nothing is as it seems. With every turn of the page, secrets unravel, revealing a web of intrigue that will leave you breathless. Breaking is the easy part. Having the courage to look into the mirror of your souls, allowing yourself to be consecrated, to rise harmoniously in alignment with self and the universe, that's the hard part. Join John and Vivian on this unforgettable journey where shattered souls rise, courage is tested, and destinies are forged. The Broken Souls series by Ella Shawn, a gripping 4-book masterpiece that will keep you captivated till the very end. Don't miss your chance to experience this compelling tale of love, loss, and redemption. Purchase your copy now and be prepared to have your soul shattered. Because sometimes the darkest paths lead to the brightest light.